What's the dumbest thing you actually believed? I thought sugar grew in sugar caves. Similar to salt caves. I believed that sugar crystals like rock candy just grew in caves and there were parts of the world with beautiful crystal-lizard sugar caves. I was 25 years old when I brought it up in conversation with my fiancé. I tried to prove to him they were real, and it was when I reached my 4th page on Google. I realized my whole world was a lie. 4th page on Google. You were desperate for answers, huh? I grew up in a Jewish household but was aware of the whole Christmas thing. It was my understanding that Santa would go around bringing gifts to kids if they left out a plate of cookies and some milk for him. Seemed easy enough. 'Twas the night before Christmas and I left the perfect food arrangement out for Santa. Thinking, in spite of my religious beliefs, he might leave me a gift in exchange for the snacks. When I awoke the next morning, the cookies and milk were gone but no present was left. I was furious. How dare this jolly fat man come into my hole, steal my food and not leave anything in return. I spent years complaining about it and would curse the man's name if I saw him. Of course, years later my dad admitted that he had eaten everything. Thanks, Dad. As a kid, I thought that the world wars were like battle royales where there were no alliances, no surrenders, and just pure bloody violence between every country on Earth. I thought every country fought all of its neighbors simultaneously. That if you ask someone if they're a police officer, they have to tell you the truth. There are still people who believe this. Whoever started this urban legend is a genius. That dark meat and white meat come from 2 different birds. I was 12 when they asked me, as they did each year at Thanksgiving, which kind of meat I wanted. That year, I said, dark meat, please. But I feel bad, I'm the only one who really eats it and you always have to get an entire second turkey just for me. I'm still teased about it to this day. At 46 years old. That reindeer wasn't an actual animal but specifically a mythical animal that Santa Claus used. I believed this until I was 23 or so when I saw some nature documentary talking about reindeer. I was like, wait. I used to think that people exclusively wore hats if they were bald. Because that's why my dad wore a hat. My dad is bald but has always had a beard since I've known him. Anyway, he was also a serviceman. He used to tell me that the reason he was bald was that he stood on a landmine which blew the hair off the top of his head and it slipped round to give him the beard instead. As a child I was just like, yep. Makes sense. Hair not on head. Hair in chin. That's gravity for ya. He also told me that a scar on his leg was from a gunshot wound. 20 years later I got a bug bite on my leg. That got infected, sorry. Hope you're not eating and left a perfectly round scar in the same place as his. I commented on how much my bug bite scar looked like his gunshot wound scar and he said, what? Is that what I told you? No. This was a bug bite that got infected. Ah. Dads. I thought that teachers lived at school. I had a teacher that had a blanket in the back of her classroom. And a mini fridge, and this only further elucidated my hypothesis. Edit. I'm sorry I used the wrong word. I thought Churchill was an architect because when I was little my mum told me he was one of the architects of Israel. I was convinced that Greeks still worshipped Zeus and other gods for a while after I heard the word Greek Orthodox Church as a kid. When I was little, I genuinely believed the Teletubbies were evil and that if I didn't watch them on TV every night, even though I hated the show, that they would come and get me. To be fair though, they're kind of creepy. But what will happen when you stop? When we played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, my little sister used to accept the lamest missions and not get good rewards. I told her about it and she responded with, "How would you like it if you were a poor Pokemon that lost its mom and was stuck all alone and had nothing to give someone to save you?" I laughed my head off at her because it's not real. Duh, but secretly, I feel that in my soul sometimes. When I was a kid, I used to think professional wrestling was real. And The Undertaker scared the living speep out of me during his whole Ministry of Darkness phase. I thought he actually was Satan's minister or something. Like, yeah, he's an undead overlord of hell, here to bring an eternity of darkness and misery to this planet. But he also has to make a weekly television appearance to win a wrestling competition. And you can buy his action figure at Toys R Us. I believed my uncle's roommate just slept on the couch. When I was 6, I watched a movie, King Kong. And a scene with a bunch of black folks emerging from the mud appeared and I got a bit spooked by it. A bit later, I was at McDonald's with my parents and I saw a black family walk in. Thank God my parents are deaf, or I would have asked out loud, "Why are the mud people here?" Mum thought I was racist, but I was just a bit inexperienced, lol. More so naive and innocent rather than dumb, but still funny. My dad used to tell us kids that a dwarf/little person worked in and operated every car park barrier in the world. Every time he drove up to one, he'd press the button for the ticket and say, "Cheers, mate. How's the wife?" and fake a conversation as he waited for the barrier to open, lol. One of my favorite songs growing up was TLC's Don't Go, Jason Waterfalls. You're not alone. Except it was Go Go Jason Waterfalls for me. That being named Johnny was a sin. There's a part of the song "The Devil Went Down to Georgia" that goes, "My name's Johnny and it might be a sin." But I'll take your bet I instantly associated the name with being a sin, not making bets with the devil. This made me think kids named Johnny were sons of devil worshippers. I was a very dumb kid. Someone convinced me for like 5 seconds that unicorns were real. They just lost their horns through evolution and now they are plain old horses. I used to think TV static was a bunch of some type of microorganisms floating around in my TV that could electrocute you. My dog went to a farm. Until I was 35. I had 2 turtles for over 10 years until I went off to college. My mom told me she found a turtle lady that takes in unwanted turtles and that they live in a nice big pond area in her backyard. Believed her because my mom isn't the type to lie. A few years later I started to question it though, because of the pet sent to a farm stories I'd heard other people tell. I confronted my mom about it and she maintained that she told the truth. I did some digging and found there actually was a turtle lady in our city. I went for a visit and sure enough, my turtles were there, along with a ton of others. So I guess sometimes these stories have a happy ending. As a kid, my sister told me that we had an older brother that died. She said he died when playing bowling and his fingers didn't come out the ball and slid all the way down the alley, then he turned into a skittle. I used to think they dropped the ball at Times Square multiple times for each USA time zone. I just assumed people stuck around for the extra ball drops cause they were all drunk and having fun. Hilarious edit. Worth mentioning that I believed this until I was an adult and had my East Coast wife let me down easy. Another edit. Thanks for my very first award. Seems a fitting one for this post. Time zones were so confusing to me as a kid and even as a young adult. I feel like teachers could have explained it better. Yeah, no. Until I was way too old. I didn't know vaginas existed. I thought women just had blank space there and all births were C-sections. That the Great Wall of China had a cat adoption program. I was meeting my friend's boyfriend for the first time. And he mentioned that he had just adopted one of the retired Great Wall of China cats. China trains these cats to patrol the wall and kill vermin. And at the end of their 7-year stint they are retired and adopted out to a forever home. I kept asking questions about it. How do you apply? Are they a specific breed? How do they get transported worldwide? In the end, he told me that he made the whole thing up because my friend had told him I was really gullible and wanted to see how far he could push it. But he didn't think I'd get so enthused. The worst part? I was in my mid-20s at the time. Edit. Thanks for the awards. Lovelies. Also, just thought I'd address some of the comments and clarify that my friend is actually a really sweet person. She stood up for me many times when people have been cruel or insulting. It was an innocent prank. And I'm okay with taking the piss out of myself. I used to be so confused about the amount of time it would take to make movies because I was convinced they did it all in chronological order, and when they did flashbacks to childhood, I was like, wow, those actors are so committed, or I would think it must take a long time for their hair to grow or change in any way, and never considered it could be a wig. LOL. That WD-40 meant windows down. 40 miles per hour. Someone told me that in middle school as a joke, and I took it literally until I was a senior. That men can get pregnant too. Damn you, Schwarzenegger. I was 6 and I saw a man with a big beer belly shopping for diapers at a mall. It made all sense to me and I was so happy I screamed, OMG, you will have a baby. I think I am gonna go rewatch Junior again. When I was a kid, like 4 or so, I thought microwaves were called Michael waves and were named after my brother, whom I believed wielded the same amount of authority as the President and Captain Planet. I was once told that British TV presenter Jeremy Beadle's hand had such small fingers because of a condition, Poland syndrome, that meant he had to have his fingers replaced. And that his fingers were, in fact, pig's toes. For years. This was a piece of obscure general knowledge that I would break out when I felt the need to display the breadth of my weird knowledge. And it went down really well until the day someone finally said, "Don't pigs have hooves?" I don't know that I have ever experienced such a moment of butt-clenchingly cringy embarrassment. When I was a little kid, I believed that when people got divorced, they had a divorce ceremony. Like where they had to go to church and say, "I don't." And I imagined the woman wore a black divorce dress like her wedding dress had been dyed black. And that everybody went to the reception where the ex-bride and ex-groom sat on opposite sides of the hall, and there was a divorce cake where the little bride and groom on top had their backs to each other with their arms angrily crossed. I eventually learned, from watching my mom's soap operas, that this was not the case. And was kind of disappointed 'cause I'd been to a few weddings by then. And was interested in what a divorce ceremony was like. Can these exist? If you ignore bullies, they will leave you alone. Also, bullies are just insecure and looking for a friend. That there was an incredibly fat, slimy dinosaur called a Blopiosaurus. I even made a whole report about it in kindergarten. Based entirely off of the information my oh so intelligent and generous stepfather told me.